What's up, familia? Welcome inside the pad. Hope you guys are doing good. Keep in between the lines. Got your load secure. Okay, man. We are just a lot going on uh with the boys in blue. And believe it or not, we scheduled to do this day, exactly this day, and a lot has happened since then. One is we're going to see the Dodgers going to the World Series against the Yankees. I'm excited about that. I'm elated. I'm doing the best to keep my composure right now, just saying those words. Um, Obviously, we lost Fernando Valenzuela, El Toro, and we will make the connection to all of this because I don't think people know just how much of a pivotal role he played when you talk about the history of the Dodgers coming to Los Angeles. So definitely, we're definitely gonna touch on Fernando Valenzuela. Absolutely, man. Let's go ahead and let's bring in my brother, mi hermano one, Mr. Robert Anthony. How you
Ed, how
doing,
you
sir?
doing? What's up to everybody out there in YouTube land? I hope everybody's well, and RIP to the great Fernando Venezuela.
Yeah, yeah, man. It's I got the word last night and I was just like, wow, he wasn't that old, Robert. He wasn't old at all, man. 63 years old. That's pretty young in today's
That
age.
is, I agree. I agree with you 100%. That's and the last time I saw him, he looked pretty good. So rest in peace,
I
man. It's tough for everybody if you're a baseball fan, but I could imagine Dodger Nation. What do the Dodgers call you? You guys Dodger Nation, Dodger. I don't
Oh
know.
yeah, man. Dodger Nation. Yeah,
Dodger
yeah.
Nation.
Pink,
I
blue,
would.
bleed blue, Dodger blue, man.
I would think it would be really, really bad for them out there, man. Because I remember when I was a little kid and Fernando Mania was taking off, it was must see TV.
And we're gonna get to all that. But first of all, Robert, you haven't been on the channel for a second, brother. So for those people that are tuning in, that's like, wait, who's this guy, man? Because they just barely started watching Trucker. Can you just explain a little bit of who you are and a little bit of your history?
Yeah, definitely. I'm Robert Anthony, born and raised out here in San Jose, California. I've been teaching Mexican American Chicano studies. I'm a Chicano studies teacher. I actually went back and got my degree and everything so I could teach. I was always interested in the subject matter, but it's something that fascinates me because there's so much rich Mexican American history. I say this with almost awe, man. I say this: we stand on the shoulders of giants, man. What the people did before us to get us to this point, it amazes me. It sincerely does, man. I don't claim to be an expert on everything at all, but I do know a little bit about the subject matter. But I'm very like I said, the history just has always fascinated me, especially because we've always
Right.
talked about this, Ed, how we learn things and we think to each other, why didn't I know this? Why didn't I learn this? I'm not saying I was robbed of my history, but there's a lot of great Mexican American stories that is just great American history. It's just great American history. The,
Right.
Everything that we've been through as a people and, the steps that we took forward, man. I often tell people, I hear young people saying how hard it is to be a minority now. Try 1942.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, try 1942 during the Zoot
Yeah.
Suit Riot. So
Right. Right. So for those that didn't catch it, my boy Robert here teaches high school Chicano history, and I've actually been to the school where he teaches. And if you
a couple
guys are
times.
interested, if you guys are interested in the topics that him and I have covered, it is we stepped away from it for a minute. But if you guys are interested in all the Chicano topics that we've hit, you guys go to my channel, Cholo Trucker, this channel, go to the playlist, scroll down. you're gonna see where it says Chicano history. There, right there, is a list of topics that him and I have covered, and it's very, very interesting stuff, man. Some of the things like I never even heard of, but thanks to this man who's over here teaching me a lot of this history, which should just be American history. So, you know, with the heels of everything that's going on, I thought it'd be pretty cool to, you and I, Robert, we talked about, hey, we need to talk about this history of Dodger Stadium, how it came to be. I don't, Robert, I've never met anybody that doesn't know about this. They probably just don't know the details. Everybody I've met that I've brought up, or they've said like, "Hey, do you know how it all came to be?" They just pretty much roughly say, "Oh, they tore it down so they could build Dodger Stadium." But I've never met anybody that's like super surprised, like, "What? I never heard of that before." Like, I always I knew, I always knew. No, I didn't know the details. I didn't know the names. I didn't know, a lot of things that we're gonna get into tonight. I didn't know a lot of the intricate details per se, but I would probably just say it. If you got to me, say 10 years ago, and you asked me, "Hey, do you know how Dodger Stadium was made?" I would have just said like, "Yeah, you know what, man? But they kicked people out so they could build Dodger Stadium." And that's basically what I run into, right? I don't really run into too many people that really actually truly know the details. So, Robert, do you teach this at all, or was this just something? 'Cause, it is Chicano history. It's
It
a lot
is.
more like Los Angeles based, but do you teach this?
It is. I do go over it. I've you know when we were planning on doing this, I realized, what, I need to invest more time in this. I feel like I've glossed over it, and I might have done it a disservice because this is a huge event. I've always, I don't know if it's a geography thing where I never really tripped out on why was the Dodger Stadium area called Chavez Ravine? Why did it have that name? Why was it a Latino name? Until I looked into it. I just thought, like, like a lot of LA, it's so historical where they have certain areas. I just took it for granted, like, oh, that was probably an area and everything was all good and they decided to build there, and that wasn't the case. Everything
Right.
wasn't all good. You know what I mean? So that always fascinated me. And once I found out what happened, it was it's disheartening. It's disheartening. The whole situation is disheartening. You know, and we could get into that and start talking about that. But if anybody knows the true history, or you are listening and you have some knowledge, man, chime in tonight.
Yeah.
Because that's your living history,
Right.
right? If you really remember it and know things about it, because it's one of those things that you look at and you just think to yourself, like, how did that happen? How
Well,
was that
let's
happening?
let's all learn together here. So, um, many, many, many years ago, before it was even Chavez Ravine, it was known as Mount Lookout, which is a little bit strange because the Dodgers minor league team, I think their double A is called the Lookouts. I had no idea. I had no idea the Chattanooga Lookouts. I don't. I think they may have changed, but for many years, their minor league Double A ball club was called the Lookouts, and I didn't even know what a lookout was. But before it was Chavez Ravine, before you had the three little communities, Palo Verde, Bishop, La Loma, it was called Mount Lookout, and you had a lot of photographers. This is going back in the day, right? You had people with telescopes that would go out, and it was said that you could get to the top of that mountain and you could see the ocean, you could see the sea. You can't do that today. There's too many buildings, there's too much smog, there's too much city. There is no way you could get to the top of Dodger Stadium and see the ocean. Not gonna happen. And I didn't know this. I didn't know this, but there was a lot of hills, a lot of mountains in Los Angeles before they really started tearing mountains down and building cities, man. Um, you could kind of still see some of the hills, I mean, if you go through like East LA and everything, a lot of it is hills. A lot of it is going up and down, you know. So it does make sense. Once you get into Los Angeles, you're not really, it's a little bit more flat. You don't see the mountains till a little bit off in the distance. And I don't think anybody ever thinks like, huh, so mountains are all around us, but just right here, it just happened to be flat. No, mountains were there too until they started tearing mountains apart to start building the cities. So it was called Mount Lookout. And that part right there, to the best of my knowledge, it was just kind of left alone. And that is where they started going and, you know, getting ownership because that part was left alone from the city. And a lot of these Chicanos, Mexican Americans, and people that were migrating over went and actually owned homes and property there from Palo Verde, Bishop, La Loma, which, you know, all together is Chavez Ravine. And I guess it was over 1,000 families that lived there. Now, I don't know an actual head count. Everywhere I look, they name it by families, not so much by people. And I keep on seeing anywhere from 1,100 to 1,800 families. Whatever that means, how many people you want to throw in that, I don't know. But apparently, altogether, there was about anywhere from 1,100 to 1,800 families. Whether those numbers are correct or not, I don't know. But a lot of, you know, Robert, there was a church, there was a school,
They
there
have a
was
church,
a
they have a school.
there was a neighborhood there, man. These they built they carved off a nice little neighborhood for themselves. From
They
what I understand, it was dirt roads, not really sidewalks, and yeah, I mean everything that I'm hearing. Obviously, you're gonna have people saying that, oh, you know what, we loved it there, and maybe they did. I'm not saying they didn't. Maybe they did, right? Robert, what do you know, or what comes to your mind when you think of the three neighborhoods that make up Chavez Ravine, Palo Verde, Bishop, La Loma, and the fact that you had, I don't, anywhere from 1,000 to 2,000 families living there.
well, the first thing that I realized when I was looking at the subject matter is first it was tight knit.
Mhm.
It was a tight knit community, right? And like you said, they had mentioned their schools, they had mentioned their churches. But one thing that I saw a lot of them, the young men who are older now talking about, they were reflecting on their youth living there. They were talking about how other places would go there and they would lose to them in little league baseball. They would lose to them in football, and they would think to themselves like, "How are we coming here? How are these people in this area?" Because it wasn't affluent, right? It wasn't like a big money area, and they were just thinking to themselves, "How are other cities coming here, or other parts of the town coming in here?" And these young men who are older now were reflecting on how good it felt that their little tight knit community would walk away the winner the majority of the time. And that must have felt really good, man, because when you're in a tight knit community, that it's so outdated, man. But it's people look after each other,
Right.
right? People look after each other. People have a vested interest in each other. So that's
Mhm.
you could see the pride in being from that area, the pride in I saw the mailman, like you said, the mailman was walking down the dirt road, going down, and delivering the mail to the people, and it looked like a nice little area that people could raise their family. It really did, right? And man, it's just like I hate to keep on using the word amazing, but it just amazes me that they were uprooted the way they were,
Yeah.
right? It's just with with almost no, oh well, it's time for you to go, it's time for you to go kind of situation, right? And it had been around since the 30s,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know this, but when LA at that time, there wasn't a single professional sports team, I believe, in LA at that time. So they were,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
Los Angeles was becoming a big city, and they wanted, to be like every other big city. They needed some attractions, right? So they were actively scouting. They were actively scouting, you know, who would want to come here and play for us,
Mhm.
right? And it just so happened that the Dodgers were willing, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there was a whole process when it came to that. So, with Chavez Ravine, the city had looked at it and said like, hey, you know what? There was this project called urban renewal, right? Well, due to redlining, where you could, it was kind of racially segregation and everything like that on where you could live. There was this project urban renewal that the city was gonna basically update its so-called slums, right? And they looked at Chavez Ravine and they said like, those are slums. Okay, there's no pavement, there's no sidewalks, they're living like slums, right? The thing that gets lost in all of this is that's not the only place that they did this project, urban renewal, right? But it's the only place where this forced push out took place. But there was other places and in urban renewal where they said, hey, here's a couple of bucks, get out, because we're gonna redo this area. That those places just don't get well noticed because of what happened at Chavez Ravine, where they had to be forced out. So with all of that, eminent domain comes along and they have to pay them to get out. Now, Dodger Stadium wasn't even in the picture in any of this. They were looking to build a new community, basically project housing, right? But they weren't calling it project housing. I forgot what they were calling it. Townhomes. They're going to be. I remember seeing and reading about it. They're going to be 13 stories high. There was going to be a school. There was going to be a store, and what they had told the residents, which really didn't have any choice through eminent domain, it's like, here's some money, and you guys get to come back and you guys get first dib on what spot you want to live at. And they were kind of like, hold on, wait a second. We live in homes with a yard. We could barbecue, why do we want to leave and then come back to live in an apartment, in a project apartment? You live in a project apartment to get to a home. You don't go from a home to a project apartment unless you fell on some really bad times, So that was one thing that kind of gets a little combed over, where it's like, well, they gave them, their choice on what they wanted to get to. It's like, yeah, but I live in a house right now, man. If they say, "Hey, you know what? We're gonna give you a couple of pennies, but you get to come back. We're gonna build projects right here, and you get to come back and pick anyone you want." I tell them, "Childless, dog. I'm not coming back, man. I'm gonna seek for another home. But um, I think people get that. I think there's some conflation right there, right? Where it's like, because when I ask people, immediately they say, "Oh, the Dodgers came and pushed those people out and built it." That's not what happened. The city with eminent domain, they went, looked at that place along with other places in LA, looked at it as slums, and they were having the project urban renewal. So they were kicking them out and they were going to build new apartments. They put some luxury name to it. I forgot, but basically they're going to be projects. It wasn't that. There was also at that same time, there was a group known as Cash. Shoot, I forgot what it stood for. Community Against Socialist Housing. I think that was the name, right? The acronym is Cash. Community Against Socialist Housing. I believe that's what it was called, right? And they had got Congressman Norris Polson to run for mayor, right? They did not want these projects to go up in Chavez Ravine. Don't be confused, everybody. Don't be confused. They were not fighting for the people that live at Chavez Ravine. They were not fighting for them. Okay. They were fighting against the construction. A lot of these people were already paid and already moved. By 1951, two-thirds of Chavez Ravine's residents had already moved out. Underpaid. I want to make that clear. They were underpaid for their home. This dude, Norris Polson, ran for mayor, won, and within a week, he canceled urban renewal project, which stopped the construction that was supposed to take place there at Chavez Ravine. So, Robert, what's your thoughts on that, brother?
Well, first of all, it's ironic that you mentioned the Mayor Polson, because when he was a conservative, he was a Republican, right?
Mm,
And like you said, he entered the mayoral race on an anti-public housing campaign. That was his. That's what he was entering on. And from the research that I had done, he used Red Scare tactics and won. So I'm assuming Red Scare tactics had to be anti-communist, some type of communist platform. I could, if somebody wants to correct me, they can. But that was what I was looking at.
yes, because there was, I believe his running mate would, I think he refused to say that he wasn't a communist. It was something so silly, something so small, something so silly. But at that time, that actually meant a lot.
Right.
We can't judge it with our 2024, eyes, man. At that time, that meant a lot. But I think it was the person that he was running against.
Yeah.
Um, he he wouldn't denounce being a communist or something of that sort, which
And
got Mayor Norris Polson the spot.
that just shows you how much times have changed,
Right.
because 1951, 1952, even 1960, if you were called a communist, that
Mm,
was a big deal.
mm,
You know, if somebody had a communist policy, or somebody had a communist sympath, even a communist sympathizer, that was a big deal. You were gonna be out there in public. It was one of those things that, you know, you couldn't come back from. You just couldn't come back from it. Like today, where there's certain things that people can't say without getting canceled. If
right.
back
Yeah.
then, if there was cancellation, communist was a big. You would have been canceled,
Mm,
right? Because it was a
yeah.
big deal. We were still in the Cold War with the. Back then, it wasn't even called Russia. It was called the USSR,
Mm,
right? It wasn't called Russia. It was called the USSR. So we were at a Cold War. We were going to keep on going, and it was going to escalate and get bigger and bigger. And it was just it's a trip that that happened. But I want to touch on the eminent domain that you're talking about, because
yes.
that's when the government gets involved.
Right.
A lot of people think that, oh, the eminent domain, it's their right to do that, and it is. But first of all, when you do eminent domain, it's and you're taking somebody's housing like that, you got to compensate them fairly. You got to have an appraiser go over there and compensate them fairly. They weren't compensated fairly. They just weren't. That's a fact. They weren't. And the people who refused to sell their houses, when it was time, when the Dodgers decided, you know what, this is ours now, and all that stuff didn't come to fruition like you talked about, all that stuff that you had just mentioned, Ed.
Right.
When it was time for the Dodgers to start building, those families got physically removed. Can you imagine getting physically removed from your house like that? And not only that, it was broadcasted. TV was there, right? So now you're getting broadcast on TV. You're home. They're pulling you out. It's just it's a shame, because they didn't get compensated. They didn't get any housing,
Mm,
right? We know they didn't get season tickets. Right? They didn't get season
right.
tickets.
Right. Yeah.
What did they get?
Yeah.
What did they get besides a heartache? And there's one thing I know about this country and about life, man, is people's homes, or having a home, or an access to a home, or owning a home. That's a very important thing. And to take it
Oh,
away from somebody,
mm.
to take it away the way they took it away, that's got to be so hurtful that the government could just come in and do that and then not even compensate you fairly.
Yeah. Okay. So with eminent domain, they got most of the people out. I mean, by far, most of the people out that got underpaid, thinking that they were going to be able to come back and live in a project house, which again, it's not a, hurrah, man, we're losing our actual house to go live in a project. No, they weren't happy about that. But the ones that stood there, once urban renewal project was canceled by Mayor Polson, that left the people that left them high and dry. It's like, wait, we thought we are gonna come back, because you said you were gonna give us first dibs on this project to go live there. It's like, well, that's done, that's canceled. And by that time, is the thing. I know a lot of the images are burnt to people's heads, but by that time, a lot of the houses have already been bulldozed. Okay.
Yes.
There were, I believe it again, the numbers are a little chalky, anywhere from 20 to 30 families. All right. Again, families, whatever that means to you guys, maybe it's 20 or 30 houses. I don't know. Um, that were still living there. We're still living in Chavez Ravine, a little bit more spread out, and that is when they were physically kicked out. But before all that took place, okay, there was something going on in New York with the Brooklyn Dodgers. They were at Ebbets Field, which I did get a chance to go visit, by the way, man. Oh gosh, it was such a piece of history, Robert.
Good
I
for
almost,
you.
man, I almost teared up, man. I almost teared up right there. They have in Brooklyn, they built a big apartment complex. They have a mural across the street of the old Ebbets Field, and across the street going the other way, the elementary school there is called Ebbets Field Elementary School,
Wow.
and they have the old original wall, and it says Ebbets Field on that apartment
Wow.
complex. And one thing that I did not get a chance to do, but whenever I go back, I'm gonna do it. They have home plate. They have a home plate. Like, I don't think it's the original one, but they have a home plate exactly where home plate used to be if you walk inside those those apartments in Brooklyn. So that oh man, it was what I just put my hand on that one. I was just like, wow, man, like I could just feel the history, man. It was great. Um, so Walter O'Malley got the idea to come out west along with the San Francisco Giants. I think people forget about that. The San Francisco Giants came out west with the
Yeah.
Dodgers. Go for it, Robert.
Let me just give everybody a time frame. This is 1958.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
so you know, we have a time frame. What's going on?
Right.
1958 was the last of the people who were in
Right.
Chavez Ravine. That was the
Right.
last. That's when the Dodgers, like you were talking about, the Dodgers and the city struck a deal with the Dodgers, and that was it. So my apologies. Up to
Yeah.
cut you
No.
off.
No. For sure.
Just want to give everybody a time frame.
Yeah. So Walter O'Malley wanted to head out west. I forgot the lady's name. She was really pushing for him. She was from Los Angeles. She was really pushing for him to get out to Los Angeles since Brooklyn would not be able to accommodate him for a new field. And being there, I know it's so many years later, I could see just like where are you gonna put a new field? It's like so I'm talking about in Brooklyn. It's like there's so much you're gonna have to tear down so many apartments. And first people were thinking it was gonna be Wrigley Field. Yes, Wrigley Field. I know when people think Wrigley Field, they think of Chicago, and you probably should, but there is a Wrigley Field in Los Angeles. That is where the Los Angeles Triple A Los Angeles Angels used to play out of. Um, it's in shoot, I think it was on the corner of Alondra and 42nd Street. Somebody let me know if you guys. It's not there anymore. I think they tore the ballpark down, and I think it's a bunch of small little ballparks and a community center now. It's
And
been many.
was that affiliated with the Wrigley Field with Wrigley's and all that as well?
Yes,
So wow,
yes,
I didn't know
yes.
that.
They owned. Okay, it was the minor league team. to because what's the man's name that owns Wrigley Field? His last name is Wrigley.
He was the gum mogul.
Yeah, so he owned a small minor league Wrigley Field here in LA.
Wow.
And I don't think people know that it was a AAA ballpark, and that's where the Los Angeles Angels used to play. So before the Los Angeles Angels became a major league club, so they
I
were
don't want
thinking,
to. I don't want to get off topic, but
yeah,
is that Los Angeles Angels team the one who eventually became the Los Angeles California Angels?
yes, yes,
Wow.
yes. I believe they moved to Seattle as a still a minor league team, and then came back as a major league team as the Major League Baseball started expanding a little bit more. So I believe that's what happened. But so that's what they thought they were going to look at. But as they were on a helicopter ride, he looked down at Chavez Ravine, and remember, everybody, remember, a lot of the houses had already been bulldozed. Okay, there was very few houses left. That was the spot that they picked. They go, they force the people out, and there is that very popular picture of the young girl. Aurora Vargas is her name, that they're dragging her out walking down the stairs. Um, and right in front of them, man, they showed up to evict them forcefully. And they also show up with tractors. So as soon as they get everybody out, they run right through the house. Can you imagine that, Robert? Man, goodness, man. Like they come in, drag you out, and as soon as you're, heck, I don't know, 10, 20 feet away where you're safely away from the house, here comes a bulldozer just crushing down the house, man. Good gosh.
That is so disheartening to, right? This is so disheartening to hear you talk about it. Can you imagine seeing it
Mm,
or living it? Right?
yeah.
It's like I said, man. First of all, different time, different period, right? Do you think that could happen today? Or do you think the community,
Mm,
the people's communities are too strong, or do you think it could happen to certain communities? And again, not to get off topic, but just for conversation, do you think a community of people this could still happen to them?
yeah, let me answer that first. Lord Spike, when the new mayor came in, he canceled that project. So it wasn't so much an agreement. He came in and he canceled it, and he was marching. He was alongside with that group Cash, who advocated for him to get in. He got in and he canceled it. So that's why those projects were never built. Um, do I think it can happen today? Not forcefully like that, Robert. I think everything would have to be lawyers and money and courts. There's too much social media, there's too many cameras, there's too much, this is the 50s. If there's no news outlet, if there's no news reporters out there, nobody's even gonna know this is going on, and nobody's even gonna care. I mean, you could go and tell your family and nobody, but in today's world, I don't think it can happen where they can, do something like this and then forcefully get you. There's too many cameras, too many lawyers,
Right.
there's too much going on. But they can do it, by twisting and bending the law here and there. And they got the big money, they got the corporations, they got the lawyers. In that way, in that sense, yeah, I think it can happen. As a matter of fact, somebody was throwing on here. I don't want to get too off topic, but yeah, I mean, gentrification and, East LA, what is the barrio known as East Los, it's not what it used to be once upon a time. Don't get me wrong, East Los is still East Los, but it is losing a little bit of its culture because certain buildings are being bought off, certain buildings are, apartments are being bought out, and it's starting to get a little bit gentrified. It's still great. Don't get me wrong. The culture's still there. Go down to East LA, enjoy yourself a taco, look at the murals, get all the culture in. But slowly, big money is starting to move in, and I think in that way it can happen. This way, I don't think it can anymore. There's just too many cameras. People could just go live on YouTube and hey, look, it's just I don't think so, man.
Let me ask you another question because you're born and raised Los Angeles, down south guy. Let me ask you another question. Have you ever heard of negativity towards the people of Chavez Ravine? Like, why don't they just leave? We can have the Dodgers come in here. Why are they staying? Did you ever hear that type of backlash? Even like from back then, do you think that the city of Los Angeles was like, come on, get them out already? Or do you think anybody was like, this is wrong? Have you ever heard anybody say anything about anything like that? Was the
I
city was the city besides this area behind this move?
Yeah, I've never heard anybody speak against the people that live there.
Yeah,
There are obviously people that, hold a grudge, and look, rightfully so. I'm not telling them not to, there are people that are like, man, screw the Dodgers, right?
right,
But at the same time, it wasn't really the Dodgers that did
right,
this. Now they did do it with the remainder of the families that were left there, yes. But before that, it was Mayor Norris Paulson. Yes, now Dodger Stadium is there, but that's where I think people get conflated. It's not that the Dodgers came, or Walter O'Malley, I should say, because he was the owner. Not like Walter O'Malley came and said, "Move all these people out of the way so we could put Dodger Stadium here." That is not what happened.
right.
Yes, there were a few families left, very few, and I'm not saying they shouldn't count. I'm just saying let's stick to what is true. Okay,
Yeah,
Walter O'Malley did not just come and say get a big broom and sweep all these people out of here. That's not what happened. Okay,
let's be
that
fact.
land was already vacant for
Yeah,
the most part because of all this nonsense that was going on with the mayor Paulson and urban renewal and redlining, eminent domain, all this nonsense that was going on.
right.
That land became almost vacant, so the remaining families were pushed out so they could bring in Dodger Stadium. I
I'm
haven't
just,
heard anything. I,
yeah.
I will say everybody says that, hey man, the people that live there, um, they're pissed. But let me go ahead and bring this video up. This guy was a kid, I believe, and his dad, they lived there. Let me just go ahead and throw this. They're here. You guys can listen to it.
Pretty Santian
Oh,
left
hang on. Can you guys hear it?
know how it all happened. But like his daddy,
Can you hear it, Robert?
Right now, I can't hear anything.
Yeah, I don't think. Let me see. I don't think the sound's on. Let me see. Let me play it.
it wasn't his thing was never against the Dodgers. His thing was the way.
Yeah, you weren't able to hear anything, right?
I was able to hear something, but it was a little choppy.
Ah, heck. All right, let me take that down. Let me work on that.
But I was,
Oh,
I was, I was going to say, I understand the people from Chavez Ravine being, upset and angry, and some of them are like, "The hell with the Dodgers." That I could see. I'm just
mm.
wondering if there was a flip side, if there were people from Los Angeles who were saying, "You know what? Hey, hurry up and get these people out of here so we can bring the Dodgers in."
That's a good question.
You
I'm not
know,
I'm not, I'm not sure, man. I haven't heard anything like that, but at the same time, I haven't asked.
right,
Obviously, one side of the story gets more attention,
right.
but that's a good question. I
And
can
LA was different at that time.
okay, I can only assume that there had to be some people
Right,
that were, that didn't care, that there were still a few families that lived there and said like, "Whoa, wait a second, we're getting some, major sports team here, man. Hurry
yeah.
up and get them out of here already."
People out
Yeah,
of here.
I'm
Right.
sure. I'm sure. I would like to. I'm gonna look into that. I doubt that's probably out there as much as the people that are like, oh man, sympathizing with the
Right.
people that were kicked out of there. But I can almost guarantee that there had to be at least a few heads that were
I would.
like, man, I'm waiting for a major team. I
Right.
mean, there was no major team.
And
like you said, Los Angeles.
then I would also think about, like, and again, not to get off topic, and I'm not that guy, but the racial component. I wonder how many people from Los Angeles were like, get those Mexicans out of there. Los Angeles, it wasn't what it was today. Los Angeles is like the mecca to me when it comes to Mexican American culture. It's the biggest population. Neighborhoods have been established for generation upon generation, right? But my thing, in 1951, in 1950, it didn't have a humongous. It was, I think people saw it going in that direction. But I'm just wondering if there was those type of people getting involved, just saying like, hey, you know what, this is going to be easy to do, because who are they going to rent to? Where are they going to go?
Right.
And again, I don't want to make it. We've talked many times. I'm not that guy. I want to bring the racial aspect into it, but I bet this had a lot to do with some racial overtones.
Well, especially at that time, yeah.
At that time,
especially at that time.
Especially at that time, it's just that's something that, like you mentioned, that definitely couldn't happen today, right? Because the community is so, I don't want to say together, but there's just too many. People would speak out about it, right? Like, hey, like you said, lawyers, there'd be organizations, this and that. But in 1950, because we got to realize, let's take a look at it. If we just break it down in that era, at that time, they didn't get the money that they were supposed to get.
Right.
They didn't get the money they were supposed to get. They didn't get the housing they were supposed to get.
Correct.
Most of them got their houses bulldozed. They didn't get anything. Mm-hmm. So how does that happen? How does it go from, okay, we're going to give you first dibs? Well, we know how it happened because you just broke it down with the mayor and everything. But I'm just saying, how do you end up having a home and walking away with pretty much nothing? Like I said, man, I think that time, I think it was just a bad time right then. I think there were probably some racial overtones where it was like, you know what, this is going to be easy. We'll sweep. How many are there? 1,800? We'll get them out of there.
Well, right? I mean, something that you and I touched on another video, man. This was even before, the Vietnam War, when they were disproportionately sending Chicanos out to the front line and dying at a alarming rate before all that stuff. So yeah, you can only imagine, what was going on at that time. Now, here's something. Go for it, Robert. Go for it.
I apologize, but I'm just saying, and we got to realize too, this is like only 10 years removed from the Zoot Suit riots.
Right.
In 10 years, I don't think in 10 years the city was like welcoming to Mexican Americans with open arms. And I don't want it to go in that direction, man, but it's just, those thoughts do come to my mind, when I see something like this happening. This is, on top of just it being injustice, this is some racial injustice. And this is something that, we always talk about, the importance of Chicano history. This is why it's important. So we know this type of history. This happened, right? This happened. There's probably somebody that could shoot you out a little shot right now who knows somebody whose grandparents knew somebody in that area. It's not that far removed,
Right.
But like I said, this is the importance of, of teaching. And this is good American history, right? The land of the free, right?
Well, we got this comment right here.
There we go.
Yeah.
Right? It's the land of the free, but those people didn't get anything out of it. They were free, they were American, right? That's an injustice that we need to talk about. Am I saying that America is the worst country now? And no, nothing like that. But these are things that we need to talk about. These are things that we need to surface. Why? Because so we all have a better understanding of all our history. Let's face it, man. The California, the Southwest, Mexican Americans really put their stamp down, right? They need to be talked about. They need to be acknowledged for that. Not because it's a trip just to, let's talk about it so we can talk about our people. No, it's just good history for everybody.
Right.
It really is, man. I don't mean to be on my soapbox and preach that, man, but I sincerely believe that, man. You know,
No, you're right. No, we've talked about it on other videos when we covered so many other things, the Chicano moratorium and all that stuff, man. Um, that yeah, it's not taught, it's not part of American history, but it really is. But I will say this, Robert, what you were asking about when people were, if you were asking like, hey, were there people saying like, get them out of there already so we can have Dodger Stadium? I will say this. I kept on seeing that at least for, the Latino, Mexican American, Mexican communities, they were not down with going to Dodger games. They were not. They resisted. They stood away. The Dodgers came in. They started building a Dodger Stadium, but the Dodgers played actually at the Coliseum for the first few years before 1962 when Dodger Stadium opened. Um, and that they looked at it like, no, Chales, you know what, we're not going. I mean, I'm sure there was some, Chicanos going to the games here and there, but that there was a big culture shift. And even for the ones that are, still fighting about this, um, they have came out and said that, yeah, man, Chicanos weren't really going to Dodger games. They weren't really down with it. There was one person that changed the culture and the feel of Dodger baseball in Los Angeles. You know, um, even though you had some big names, Don Drysdale and so many guys, right? I mean, so a lot of the greats, man. Um, it was one guy from Sonora, Mexico, that opened up on 1981.
jeez, what a year.
What a year, man. And the crazy thing is that number 34, El Toro, he wasn't even supposed to pitch opening day. I don't know if people know that. He was not supposed to pitch opening day. What had happened is that starting pitcher, Jerry Roos, pulled a calf muscle out on the field, stretching, warming up, pulled a calf muscle, comes back to Tommy Lasorda and says, I can't get out there, man. I pulled the calf muscle. Now, Fernando at that time was slated to pitch third. Okay, so 2 days after opening day. Tommy did not want to move up his pitcher who was going to be pitching the following night. He did not want to move him up that quick. It's like, dude, you are locked and loaded to go tomorrow, and I don't want to mess with that. So I'm going to get my third guy who we just got, and he will pitch opening day. And that was 20-year-old number 34, Fernando Valenzuela. And he went out there and he lit it up. He lit up the entire season. And from that moment on, to my understanding, I did not live through this. I was born in 1981. Okay. So my whole existence, LA has always been super duper pro Dodgers, as I am. Okay. I was never around for the pre Fernando Valenzuela days if there was some hatred towards the Dodgers, which some of it is a little bit misunderstanding, but I get it. Like I said, it's not like the Dodgers came in and kicked everybody out. No, there was a lot more process to it. But that's not to say that Walter O'Malley has his hands completely clean, because he doesn't.
Agreed.
But my whole existence, it was Fernando Valenzuela and on. But if there was dislike for the Dodgers, Robert, everybody watching, good gosh, this man changed it, because Los Angeles is the Dodgers. And
Yeah.
I know there's people today that are a little bit more caught up with this history and are saying, screw the Dodgers. And that's fine. That's cool. Everybody has the freedom, right? But generally speaking, Dodger Stadium is Los Angeles. You've heard me say that before, Robert.
Oh yeah,
I said
yeah,
LA is so spread out. It is so spread out, right? From the harbor area to the Antelope Valley to the San Gabriel Valley, West Los, East Los, Nela, Sela, the San Fernando Valle. It's so spread out. I'll even throw it out beyond Los Angeles, the Inland Empire. It's so spread out. But if you want to see where it all comes together as one, you go to Dodger Stadium.
I remember you telling me that
You
distinctively.
you go to a Dodger
Yeah, I
and
remember you telling me that.
everything that I've been hearing and seeing since Fernando Valenzuela passed away, may he rest in peace,
Rest in
is
peace.
that it all started with him. And that's not the first time I heard that. I heard that many years ago that hey, he brought the raza to Dodger Stadium because there was a little bit of a dislike.
Mm.
But when he came, he brought the raza. And today, Robert, I mean, it lives on, man. It lives
Yeah,
on, brother.
yeah. First of all, a couple of things. One thing that I wanted to mention is I wanted to mention a group called Buried Under the Blue. If you never heard of that organization, I was looking
Yes.
at this. Have you heard of it before,
Yes,
Ed?
buried under the blue. They
They're,
talk about the history. They're advocates for the history of Chavez Ravine.
yeah,
Yes.
there are organizations that's dedicated to preserving that history that we're speaking about. So shout out to them, right? Because this needs to be spoken about, and this is a good topic. As far as the Los Angeles thing, I remember you telling me that one time because I was telling you something about LA, this and that, and you were like, you know what? I asked you because LA is so big and you've been here and you've been there. I remember saying, when do you feel like you're in LA? And you said, when I'm at a Dodger game.
Yeah.
You said, when I'm at a Dodger game, I'm at home. That's Los Angeles. And that's a beautiful thing. That's what sports does, right?
Mhm.
Because even out here, if there's a game, and I'm not I was an Oakland A's fan until they're no longer going to exist. But if I went to a Giants Dodger games, man, there's a lot of Dodger fans in the Bay Area. The Dodgers are one of those teams. Wherever you go, there's going to be Dodger fans. They're iconic now, right? And it's so ironic that what brought the Raza to the Dodgers was a Mexican after what happened.
Right.
That tainted history, and look who brought them their fans. Probably, I would venture to say, some of their most loyal fans. Man, I know guys, man. I have friends, man. When the Dodgers lose, man, they're almost in tears, man. I'm like, it's gonna be. I tell some of them it's gonna be okay, but they're Dodgers they're Dodgers true and true. And as far as Fernando Valenzuela, I'm a little bit older than you, so I could remember going to friends' houses, and this is pre 100 channels that you get. You had ABC, NBC, CBS, your local channel, and the Spanish channel. Those
Mm.
were what most people had in their houses. And I could remember going to friends' houses as a young kid and seeing their grandma who didn't speak English and their grandfather who didn't speak English tuned in to Channel 14 because that was the Spanish station out here, Channel 14, watching Fernando, just watching him. He brought everybody together. He brought it together, man. You're absolutely right, man. The guy he's iconic. He will ever be known as man as 1981 was a magical season for him. You
And
know,
and one thing as well, he actually went to go sit down and have lunch at the White House as a player, as a young kid in his 20s. But he wouldn't go without Jaime Harim, who does the Spanish broadcast. He wouldn't go without him. He went to go sit down with Ronald Reagan and the president of Mexico. I forgot his name, who the president of Mexico was at that time. He went to go sit down and have lunch with them. What, like, man, this guy made it. Yeah, you're right, Lord Spike. Mike Breedle discovered Fernando in Mexico. He was actually down there to scout somebody else, and he saw Fernando, and that was all she wrote, man. this guy, and I'll ask you, Robert, and anybody who is not from LA or anywhere in Southern California, if you're from out of state or whatever, or another part of the state, was Fernando a big deal?
Yes.
Was he?
Yes, I could vividly remember watching news, and you've seen him pitch. Obviously, you've seen highlights when he would look up at the sky.
Right.
I could vividly remember like people just talking about that at school the next day. Hey, how come he pitched? Or little kids trying to imitate that.
Mm-mm.
Going around throwing the baseball around, and people were doing doing the Fernando, looking up, and everybody was playing. Baseball seemed a little more. Be honest with you too, it seemed more popular back then.
Okay.
It definitely seemed more popular back then. I remember more kids going, grabbing kids and going to your local park or school and playing some baseball. You know what I mean? And people trying to be. I want to be Fernando. Oh, Fernando. I'm right. But he was a big deal, man. He really was, man. And he was like I said, some giant. I even know Giants fans will be like, yeah, that dude was bad. For a Giant fan to admit, about a Dodger, man, that's big, right?
Yeah.
That's big. But even Giant fans would be, Fernando was, who's one of the best pitchers you've seen? I hate to say it, but Fernando was blah blah blah.
Right.
It was amazing, man. When you can become a cultural icon the way he did. Because I'll tell you what, when you're talking baseball and you say Fernando Mania, everybody knows who you're talking about.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That's when he was iconic.
I think he was, if I'm not mistaken, if anybody could let me know, but I think he was the first Mexican mega star, man, because there wasn't really any Mexicans playing football or basketball. Now, when you talk about American sports, you could talk about boxing, but boxing is global. Right?
I think the only other
sport, but when you talk about American sports, it's him.
I think the only other person comparable, and they were around the same time, Jim Plunkett.
Oh yeah,
I think and they were right around the same time. Because Jim Plunkett won the Super Bowl in 1980, and then he also won it in 1982. So right around the same time. So but there weren't many. There weren't many, and Jim Plunkett didn't take off like Fernando.
Like Fernando did.
He was iconic. Somebody just put national. Everybody knew who he was. Everybody was talking about him. He was hot. If you were talking baseball, you were talking. I would argue to say he was probably about as big as Ohtani is now.
Okay, I could see that. I could see that.
Big. A cultural phenomenon. You know what I mean? A cultural phenomenon that has not only impacted his country, but it impacted the country where he's at. He was beloved by everybody. And that's a big deal. To cross over like that, that's a big deal. Because it gives opportunities, and it gives opportunities to other people and things like of that nature, man, where it's just it was an amazing time. And if you were a Dodger, I was young, but if you were a Dodger during those times, it must have been the thing to do. Just go to a Dodger game, go to the Dodger game. My apologies.
Yeah, see that was the thing for me. Like I remember Fernando. I remember Fernando mania, right? I'm a little kid living in City Terrace, and Montebello, and everybody, oh Fernando, go out there and play a little bit of baseball, and Fernando, but we never went to a game. We never went to a game. We never went to go see him. I didn't go to a Dodger game till I was an adult, man. So, it just my mom was not gonna, as she would say, waste money on sports, man. So we came up, man, with not a lot of money, So, but yeah, it was definitely a big deal. But there was no social media back then like there is today. That's why I'm curious. Was it big everywhere, or was it just locally?
No, he was big everywhere. And that's what's even more amazing. There was no social media. So everybody all the sports writers were writing about him. right? All the
Yeah.
sports writers
Yeah.
were writing about him. You know, you would watch your local news. You know, when he came to play, everybody was ready to do it, right? Look at Robert Fernando was bigger than Otani. I would say yeah, because no social media,
Right. Yeah.
and you
Yeah.
got to realize Otani is from Japan. There's not a humongous Japanese population here,
Right.
but there's a
Right.
humongous Mexican American population. So even more people got behind him.
And you know what, Robert? You know what? It may have been Fernando. Well, it was Fernando. It was Fernando that got the raza to Dodger Stadium, but he made them Dodger fans because I've been going to Dodger games for many years now. By the way, I will be at the World Series. Yes, I will. Um,
Right.
I've been going to Dodger games for many years. I don't see anybody complaining like, "Oh man, we need representation.
Right.
We need a Chicano on here." I mean, when Adrian Gonzalez was there, that was cool. But Fernando, because of who he was and how great he was, if there was a dislike for the Dodgers, he changed that. Generally speaking, that is, it's not every single person, but he turned them into Dodger fans. So when Fernando, hangs up his hat and says, "Okay, I'm retiring," that fan base stayed.
Oh yeah.
The love for the Dodgers,
Right.
generally speaking, again, that is. I don't want anybody to leave a comment like, "Whoa, I hate the Dodgers because of what happened." Yeah, I get it. I get it. There's some people out there like that. Yeah, and that's fine, man. That's your right. Okay. But when he retired, when he left, the fandemonium for
Right.
Dodger baseball stayed, and it
Well,
still lives on today, man.
yeah. That's the beautiful thing about sports, man, is that somebody like Fernando could change perception.
Mm,
Right. He's a Dodger. Right. He was after a while. For some people, it wasn't that he was Mexican. He was a Dodger, just
yeah.
like Jack Robinson. It wasn't he was a black Dodger. He was just a Dodger.
Mm,
And he becomes part of, hey, what did he do today? And then that's the beautiful thing about sports is it can even break down barriers like that. Because
yeah.
all that matters is, hey, once you're between that diamond, those lines, can you play the game?
Right, exactly. When I took my sons to the first game, they were big Matt Kemp fans, right? And it was so cool because he actually hit a home run to win the game in extra innings that night. And my son, his favorite baseball player, for him growing up, is Clayton Kershaw. He's white. Like it just it what Fernando did was just, hey, everybody, just come and become Dodger fans. Come and love the game.
And the thing
There,
about
there's a dark history, absolutely, but now come and love the game.
right,
This is your city. This is your come and enjoy it. And I'll tell you this, Robert. At least me myself, um, knowing this history a little bit more in detail. I know, like I said, I get it. I understand that there's people out there that are like, "Oh, screw that, man. I'll never root for the Dodgers or whatever for that reason." Like I said, that's cool. That's your right. Um, I'm actually more of a Dodger fan. I now I know that the elementary school is buried under the third base side in the parking lot. Dodger Stadium to me is it feels like home. It feels like a second home. Like when I'm there, there's nothing else on my mind. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. I feel so comfortable. Like I'm exactly where I need to be right now. And there was a price that was paid for that. And that's unfortunate. Just like so many other things in life, lands were taken, so many, just across the world.
right.
Not just here in the United States. I know everybody just talks about it here in the US, but just across the world, lands were taken, pillaging, raping, all kinds of things, right? But now, I love the Dodgers. I love being a Dodger fan. And lower the ticket prices, please.
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's that issue that's not uniquely an American problem. It's things terrible things have happened all over the world, right? Not to make an excuse. Don't, I'm not trying to sweep it under the rug. What happened was terrible. It was anybody could see that. Anybody could see that, right? But instead of harping on it, and we just got to make sure something like that never happens again. Can't do anything
Right.
about the past,
Right.
right? We can't, right? But we can make sure that doesn't happen again. A lot of these injustices, we got to make sure they don't happen again. And one way we do it is to be educated. But going back to what you were saying about Curtin Clayshaw, it's funny because my friend's favorite players is Kershaw, right? He's never brought up the fact. All that matters to him is he's a Dodger. So he's not white, he's not this, he's not that. He's Dodger. He's blue, right? He's
That
Dodger blue,
exactly.
right?
Because
And that's
right now, Otani's doing his thing, and people are going crazy, and that's fine. He doesn't
yeah,
even speak English. He's from Japan. I don't
but he,
care.
he's a
Get out
Dodger.
there and ball it out, man.
Yeah, he's a Dodger. That's all that matters, man. And like I said before, that's the beautiful thing about sports. It could bring you together like that, and it could also make you do what it does for you. Put your, go to the baseball game, put your hands behind your head, and think to yourself, man, I'm at home,
Yeah,
right? You get to watch your team, and that's a beautiful thing, man. Unfortunately, like we said, it wasn't cool the way it went down, but man, look at you
yeah,
now. You root for the Dodgers, like it matters to you. You're vested. You're a fan,
absolutely. And
right?
I just wanna get at what Lulu is putting on here. Yeah, Vince Scully, the when the sombrero. If you got a sombrero, throw it to the sky. That will forever live on, man. When he was talking about Fernando Valenzuela, man, Vince Scully came out with his iconic voice, and just they really tapped in to the culture, man. And we're getting ready to wrap it up, but I just really want to say, man, I'm Dodger fan all the way through and through, man, and that's gosh, I love it, man. I love it. I love being there. I love the game. I've said this before that baseball is the sport that is played in heaven. You don't believe me? I'll see you there, and I'm gonna ball it out on you because you weren't prepared. But with that, Robert, anything else, brother, before we
There,
wrap it up?
there is. I just want to pull this up real quick so everybody gets an opportunity. If you get a chance, there's an award-winning documentary about this. It's by a gentleman by the name of Jordan Menchter. He did a story on Chavez Ravine. You could get it on YouTube. It's called Chavez Ravine, Los Angeles Story. It's a very, very well done documentary. I think I had sent it to you before. If you get a chance, go
Okay,
ahead.
okay.
But just, I don't know. I don't know the guy. I'm not trying to plug it. I'm just saying we talked about it. It's a great documentary that he did. Other than that, man, yeah, man, good topic again, man. I appreciate you. I'm glad you're doing. By the way, how's your walk going? Your stair walk?
Oh yeah, man. I knocked it out the park, man.
How'd you do?
Good. I think I did it in under 20 minutes.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
nice,
yeah,
man.
under 20 minutes, man. So,
Oh, all right. So before I get out of here, man, and I know everybody on YouTube is wondering, man, um, what's the next thing? All right, what's the next thing, man? What do we want to know?
I gotta run in November 2nd, so not this Saturday, but the following Saturday at Alvera Street. So I'll be going out there with my GoPro.
All right. Do your
Yeah,
thing, man.
yeah, get
Cool.
that going, man. But with that, that is my friend right there, my brother, my camarada. He is teaching our youngsters. He is a teacher of Chicano studies. He's teaching our high school youngsters about it. Man, brother, I appreciate you tapping in and spending this time, man. Spending your night here talking to me about Dodger, even though you're not a Dodger fan, but I appreciate you, man. It's
Thank
a
you.
important part of history, and like we always say, it shouldn't just be called Chicano history. It's part of American history.
I agree. I
So
agree. Thank you very much for the time, man. Everybody on YouTube, man. Keep on tuning into Ed, to the Cholo Trucker station, man. A lot of good things. Not just because I'm on it, although that has a lot to do with it. Nah, just joking. But no, seriously, seriousness, man. I'm not. I say this all the time. I'm not just a person who comes on here. I'm a fan. I watch his videos, man, and I appreciate what he does out here and all that good stuff, man. May the Lord continue to bless you, my friend.
appreciate you, brother. That is one Mr. Robert Anthony, Cholo Trucker. As always, live your life like you're on the road. Be aware of surroundings and always keep a safe distance. Blood makes you lit it, but loyalty makes you family. Till next time, this is Ed the Cholo Trucker. Over and out.